Since tracking customers is such a vital part of business, and using the point of sale is such an easy way of obtaining that information and retaining that information, we wanted to take an in-depth look, and that's why I've brought Ashley, our Technical Services Director over at POS Nation, back to discuss with us those specific items. So, Ashley, let's jump right into customer maintenance. How do we create a customer?
Well, easiest way is when you're first coming into the entry screen, the cashier screen, and you're going to be ringing people out. If you are tracking customers, the first thing you would naturally do is to see if the customer is already in the system. And we can do that down here in the right-hand corner of the screen where the customer info box is. Now, normally we're just going to be clicking the Find button, and that'll bring up a list of your existing customer base. Now, we can search for existing customers using customer number, last name, a few key pieces of information, but many times you're going to have the new customer that you're going to be adding right here on the spot. And right here there's the Add Customer button. And we can just click on that, and the critical piece of information you really need to capture right up front is the customer number, first name and last name. And normally that customer number will either be something you manually use to input. It could be a telephone number. It could be a serialized barcoded customer card that you distribute every time. And then we're going to add in the customer's name. We'll just call this fella John. And we'll put in a last name here, Smith. And that's really all that's essential to initially create this customer in the system. We're going to click Save. And now if we go back in, it's going to automatically put this customer down as the customer for the existing invoice. If we go back to Find, we could go back through and search again. And I'm just going to add one more customer for future reference here. And we'll use the keyboard this time just to show you that there's a couple of ways to do this. And we'll call this customer Jane. All right, and then we're going to click Save again. Now if we go back to Find, we'll see that we have the two customers there. And if we want to search, we can search by the last name here. As soon as you start typing letters, the system's already searching and isolating the customers for selection.
Well, so you can see that's very easy. So the other thing that we've been discussing is the ability to have like on-house accounts and layaway. So what I'd really like for you to show everybody is how to distinguish those and how to actually move forward with specific transactions.
Sure. So initially, if you have a customer in the system, or you're going to right here enter a new customer, the nice thing is that we don't have to go to the back office if we have the right security privileges set up to make changes to that customer's account. So let's say that we're going to give John Smith a house account with a $500 credit limit. Whenever we locate his record, we can actually do an edit function on that customer to call up the customer record, and this brings back up the main screen we created him with. And at that point, we can go to the account info tab, and you have a few selections here. We're going to make sure that we're selected the standard account type, and we're going to make sure that we click open account date. That establishes the date that the account was created, and we're going to set our $500 maximum credit limit right here. And that's done at this point. We're just going to be careful to make sure that you do click the update button when you're done with that, so that the customer actually does have a house account limit. At that point, it's very easy for us to go ahead and ring up an item and attach it to that customer account. When we go to add a few items here to the invoice, when we go to the pay function, this is one of the key features, is that you won't notice this on-account payment button until you have created at least one in-house customer account in the system. Once you have, and they have a credit limit that's not expired or over its limit at that point, this button will appear, and once we make sure that we have selected that customer for the account, it'll just put that right on the customer account. We don't have to necessarily print a receipt, and there it is.
Okay, well, let's look at that particular person's history, and let's see what it looks like to have an account balance.
Sure. Well, we can do it from the front screen here. Quite often when you're managing accounts receivable and that sort of thing, you are going to go from the back office here. And if we do want to access customer maintenance from the back screen, we're going to go to the Options button and Administrative tab, and then letter E here is Customer Maintenance. And that's going to bring up our list of customers. Here again, we can use some of the same functionality here to sort through our customers and locate a particular one that we want to work on, we can select that customer at this point and go back to the account info tab. At that point, to really see the records and the history of the purchase history, we're going to select the detailed account info button right here. And this is going to show a list of the activity for this particular customer. It's going to show if there were more than one transaction, there would just be line item after line item here. And we can sort with several buttons here. We have all invoices. We can sort by only open invoices or only paid invoices. And so I'm going to look at open invoices right now. This is their outstanding credit information. We have a few things that we can do down here. We can create a statement. If you click on that, it's going to ask you for a starting and ending date for your transaction period, and that'll allow you to send out a bill to your customer and bill them and receive payment back. If we don't want to do that, if it's a walk-in basis where they're just going to come in and pay and you're going to let them flow within that credit limit, then let's say the customer walks in right now for a payment, then we can just log those payments right here. So we have a few options down at the bottom of the screen. Select the transaction type. This is going to be either a store credit or a standard payment. So you actually could add a credit back onto that customer's account if for some reason there was an issue where you needed to do that. Normally we'll use standard payment, and we can apply that directly to invoices, or we're just going to leave it to oldest if we're just going to default to paying whatever's due at the current moment. We are going to select a payment type if we want to record that here. We got pay by cash, check, or credit. I'm going to do cash for simplicity, and I'm going to go in here and enter a $20 payment. All right, and then we've got to be sure that we click the apply payment, and it will ask us if we want to print a receipt on that. At this point, it is going to update the balance due to $33. It was $53. And here again, we can continue creating billing statements if we'd like, or we can receive payments right there on the fly.
Wow, that's great. Well, you know, one of the things that I'd also like to mention is the fact that the layaway is an option. And we saw right there that you can actually create two different styles of accounts. So dive into that and show us kind of the breadth and the depth of what layaway will do.
Sure. When you're ready to set up layaway, you do have to choose in the system between house accounts and layaways. You can't do both at the same time. So when we're going to make a transition here, we are going to have to go into the management and the setup screen here. And we're going to go to setup screen, and we're going to go to the account control, which is actually the default screen here, and we're going to enable layaway features. Now, when we do that, these two columns right here do give us several options on the functionality for layaways. One of the big ones here, one of the most necessary, I'll point out, is the deposit type. Most people do want to have some sort of layaway deposit. We can do that by flat dollar amount, or more commonly, when we set those up, we might set up some sort of a percentage, let's say 10% for our example here, that we're going to require at every time a layaway occurs. The other thing that we would look at a few of these security features and safety features for the merchant. Do we want to allow the customer to pick up a partially paid order? We could check that button if we want. Most people want to know that they've got payment in full when the customer is walking out the door with a layaway. Another key feature here is the forced minimum deposit. That just allows us to determine if we're going to be really if we're going to allow anybody to walk out of the store with merchandise without paying that minimum. Once we set those up, then we're just going to click Update. All right, once we log out, we're just going to log back in real quick to let the settings take effect. Now, we do have to do another thing to the customer here. We're going to select the customer that we want to actually allow a layaway account to happen under. And once we go to that customer, we're going to select the account info tab. And this time, instead of a standard house account, we are going to select the layaway account. And we are going to have to select the opening account date. Now, in this case, since we're not doing a house account, we don't have to worry about assigning a max balance. We will update that account. Now, at this point, we will see that you have two payment style buttons now. We have the standard pay button, and the rest of the pay button has been segregated to a new button called layaway. Now, at this point, if we start to ring up a few items, and we go to the layaway payment style, it's going to immediately bring up, here's our initial grand total is $58.84. It is prompting us for a 10% payment. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. and we're going to take a cash payment for that. It will be logged in the system. And that's how you do a layaway.
Okay, great. Well, let's see her account now, because you did pick Jane, and let's look at her account and see how it's changed.
All right, we're going to go back in and select that customer. We are going to need to go to edit, not just select. Select will put the customer in the customer box. But if we go to edit, that actually brings up the customer window again. So we're going to go to the account tab. And now you see that there's really nothing happening here on the account page because this isn't a house account. It's tracked differently by the system, and there's really no billing cycle to it. There are a few reports we can access on the back side in the reporting section, but primarily what we would need to know when that customer came back in is how to make another payment on their existing account.
Well, I think that's a great differentiation so you can see how standard house accounts and how layaway accounts actually work.